My name is Lila Monroe. I'm 28 years old, and last year, my world collapsed under the weight of a betrayal I never saw coming. If you're wondering how I went from losing everything I'd worked for to building a life stronger than ever, let me take you through my journey. Share where you're reading from in the comments, and if this story resonates, hit that like and subscribe button to join me in this tale of heartbreak, resilience, and triumph. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, in a craftsman home on a quiet street lined with maple trees. My parents, Min and Lantran, were accountants who ran a small firm, their lives governed by precision and control. Our home was a reflection of their personalities, every surface spotless, every item in its place. As their eldest child, I bore the brunt of their expectations. My clothes were chosen for practicality, my friends screened for suitable values, and my hobbies limited to those deemed productive: piano lessons, math competitions, never dance or painting. "We're building your future," my mother would say, her voice sharp as she reviewed my homework, circling any mistake in red ink. My father, quieter but no less rigid, managed our finances with a leather-bound ledger he kept locked in his desk. "Money isn't for children," he'd say when I asked about my allowance. My younger brother, Ethan, 4 years my junior, lived a different reality. He was their golden child, free to play video games, join soccer teams, and spend weekends with friends. When he crashed his bike into a neighbor's fence at 15, my parents laughed and bought him a new one. When I came home 10 minutes late from a school event, I faced a 2-hour lecture on responsibility. The disparity was glaring, and it fueled a quiet rebellion in me. At 16, I got a job at a local bakery, hiding my tips in a locked box under my bed. By 18, I'd saved enough for my first semester at a community college, studying business analytics while working nights. My parents were furious when I moved out at 19, renting a cramped room in a shared house. "You'll fail without us," my father warned, his voice cold. "You'll be back." I never returned. Freedom came at a cost, but I paid it gladly. I transferred to a state university on a partial scholarship, graduating at 22 with a degree in business analytics. By 24, I was a data analyst at a logistics company, and by 27, I was a senior analyst at a tech firm, earning $105,000 a year. My savings plan was relentless. 35% of every paycheck went into a high-yield savings account. I lived with roommates in a rundown apartment, drove a 12-year-old Honda, and cooked budget meals: rice, beans, and whatever was on sale. Every bonus, freelance gig, and tax refund went straight to savings. My goal was for $120,000, enough for a down payment on a house in Portland's soaring market, and a 6-month emergency fund. My spreadsheets were my lifeline, projecting I'd hit my target by 30. 3 years ago, I met Ryan Carter at a data science meetup. He was a software engineer, with warm brown eyes and a dry wit that made me laugh. We bonded over shared goals: financial independence, career ambition, and a mutual love for cheap coffee shops. After a year of dating, we moved in together, splitting rent on a 1-bedroom apartment to boost our savings. Ryan was my partner in every sense, encouraging me to dream bigger. Last summer, he pushed me to start house hunting, even though I was $10,000 short. "Prices are climbing," he said, scrolling through listings on his tablet. "We can't wait forever." We spent months touring homes, refining our wish list: a 3-bedroom bungalow with a modern kitchen, a small yard for a garden, and a commute under 40 minutes. When we found a craftsman listed at $410,000, with hardwood floors and a sunny deck, I knew it was the one. We toured it twice, imagining a home office in 1 bedroom and herbs growing in the back. For the first time, I let myself envision a life free from my parents' control, a home that was mine. My parents were predictably dismissive when I mentioned house hunting during a tense family dinner. We met monthly at their favorite Vietnamese restaurant, a ritual I endured to keep the peace. "Buying a house now is foolish," my father said, slicing his pho with precision. "The market's unstable," my mother nodded. "You should focus on your career, Hannah." "A house ties you down." I kept details vague, knowing they'd criticize any choice I made. A week later, the first crack appeared. During a Sunday phone call, my mother casually mentioned the lovely skylight in the house I was considering. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. I hadn't told her about the skylight or any specifics. "You must have mentioned it," she said when I pressed, her tone to smooth. I knew I hadn't, but I let it slide, assuming Ryan had let something slip in a separate conversation. 5 days later, my phone buzzed. Account access confirmed from new device. It was from my banking app, but I hadn't logged in. I checked my account. My $410,000 balance was intact. Still, the alert unnerved me. I called the bank, and the representative confirmed a login from an unfamiliar IP in Portland. "No transactions, but we can reset your password," she offered. I changed my credentials and added two-factor authentication, chalking it up to a glitch. Ryan, more cautious, suggested I scan my devices. "Better safe than sorry," he said. 3 days later, another alert, another unrecognized login. This time, I called the bank's fraud team. "There've been inquiries about wire transfers," the specialist said after reviewing my account. "No funds have moved, but I recommend a freeze." My stomach twisted, but I agreed, setting up verbal confirmation for any transfer over $1,000. That night, I ran a deep scan on my laptop, the one I use for banking, budgeting, and house hunting. The scan flagged an unfamiliar program running in the background. Ryan, who knew his way around code, helped me identify it. Spyware, capable of logging keystrokes, capturing screenshots, and uploading data to a remote server. The truth hit like a punch. 8 months earlier, my laptop had been sluggish during a visit to my parents' house. My father, who dabbled in IT for his firm, offered to optimize it, keeping it in his office overnight. He'd returned it running smoothly, and I'd thanked him, oblivious to his true intentions. Now, I realized he'd installed spyware, giving him access to my banking logins, emails, and house hunting plans for months. Hands shaking, I logged into my account from Ryan's tablet, bypassing the freeze with a phone code. The balance read $0. My $410,000 to 10 years of sacrifice was gone. A wire transfer, completed the previous day, had sent it to an account in my father's name. I collapsed onto the couch, a strangled sound escaping my throat. Ryan rushed over, his face pale. "Hannah, what's wrong?" he asked, gripping my shoulders. "They took it," I whispered, tears burning my eyes. "My parents stole everything." I called my parents repeatedly, but they didn't answer. Texts went unread, emails ignored. By morning, my shock had hardened into resolve. "I'm going to their house," I told Ryan, grabbing my keys. "I need to do this alone." The 30-minute drive to their suburban home felt endless. My mother answered the door, her face a mask of calm. "Hannah, this is unexpected," she said, stepping aside. I found my father in his office, surrounded by tax files and a glowing computer screen. "I know what you did," I said, closing the door. "You stole $410,000 from my account." "And the spyware? That was you?" My father leaned back, unfazed. "Sit down, Hannah. We made a family decision. A family decision." I snapped, my voice shaking. "You took my money without asking." My mother entered, her tone sharp. "Don't be dramatic. We're your parents. We know what's best. Where is my money?" I demanded, my hands clenched. "It's secure," my father said coolly. "We've invested it in Ethan's future. He's starting a tech company, and his potential outweighs your impulsive house purchase." Ethan appeared in the doorway, frowning. "What's going on?" he asked, looking between us. "They took my savings for you," I said, turning to him. "All $410,000. His eyes widened. "That's not true, is it?" he asked our parents. "It's for the family," my mother insisted. "Ethan's company will secure our legacy." "I didn't ask for this," Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. "I'd never take Hannah's money." My father's tone turned cold. "You'll understand when you're older. Hannah's always been selfish, hoarding her money when the family needs it." I laughed a raw, disbelieving sound that startled everyone. "You think you got it all," I said, my voice steadying. "But you didn't. What are you talking about?" My father demanded, his composure cracking. Last week, after those strange lodgings, I moved $375,000 to a new account at a different bank, I said, a smile breaking through. I went in person, no digital trail. You only got $35,000? My mother gasped, sinking into a chair. You're lying, she whispered. Call the bank, I said. I was planning to surprise Ryan with extra funds for renovations. You got the scraps. Ethan stepped closer. I want no part of this, he said firmly. Hannah, I'll help you get it back. You ungrateful children, my father spat. After everything we've done, you've done nothing but control me, I cut in. You have 24 hours to return my $35,000, or I'm going to the police with everything: bank records, spyware, all of it. I left with Ethan, who insisted on driving me home. I'm so sorry, he said, his hands gripping the wheel. I knew they favored me, but this... It's sick. It's not your fault, I said, my voice soft. But I need you to stand with me. I will, he promised. Whatever it takes. The deadline passed with no response. I filed a police report, providing bank statements, transfer records, and spyware evidence. Detective Sarah Liu took my case seriously. This is financial abuse with a digital twist, she said, her notepad filled with details. The spyware elevates it to a felony level. We'll investigate, but a civil lawsuit might recover your money faster. I hired Emily Chen, an attorney specializing in financial fraud, recommended by a colleague. Her office was small but professional, with stacks of case files and a no-nonsense demeanor. We'll file an injunction to freeze the $35,000 in your parents' account, she said after hearing my story. Then we'll pursue charges of theft, fraud, and unauthorized computer access. My parents retaliated with a counter-suit, claiming I owed them $50,000 for loans during college loans that never existed. Their attorney, James Parker, was a corporate lawyer with a reputation for winning tough cases. They're playing hardball, Emily warned. But your evidence is solid. The case gained traction online, with local blogs framing it as a cautionary tale about family financial abuse. My inbox filled with messages, support from friends, criticism from relatives. My aunt, my mother's sister, emailed, "Family matters stay private, Hannah. You're hurting your parents' reputation." I ignored her. This wasn't about drama, it was about accountability. Ryan and Ethan were my anchors. Ryan organized evidence, bank statements, emails, spyware reports, and attended every legal meeting. Ethan provided a statement detailing our parents' favoritism and confirming he'd never requested my money. I've always known they treated us differently, he told Emily, but stealing? That's unforgivable. The trial was a crucible. Emily presented my decade of disciplined saving, backed by bank records and pay stubs. A cybersecurity expert testified about the spyware, calling it professional-grade surveillance that logged keystrokes, took screenshots, and could activate my webcam. This isn't parental monitoring software, she told the court. It's used for espionage or stalking. My parents' defense leaned on their parental duty. James Parker painted them as concerned accountants protecting their daughter from a bad investment. Ms. Tran was about to sink her savings into an overpriced house, he argued. Her parents acted to safeguard her future. During my testimony, I faced Parker's aggressive cross-examination. Didn't your parents, with decades of accounting experience, warn you about the housing market? He asked, peering over his glasses. They gave opinions, I said, my voice steady. But that doesn't justify stealing my money or spying on me. Ethan's testimony was a turning point. My parents always favored me, he said, his voice clear. They gave me opportunities Hannah never had. When I learned they took her money, they offered me $30,000 to stay quiet. I refused and told them I'd support her. The courtroom stirred. My parents' faces tightened, and Judge Michael Reed's expression darkened. On day 2, Parker proposed a settlement, return of the $35,000 plus $10,000 for legal fees, in exchange for dropping all claims. Emily urged caution. It's a decent offer, she whispered. But it's your call. They need to face consequences, I said. not just pay their way out. Financial records reveal the truth. My parents' firm was failing, with debts from a bad investment and a second mortgage. They'd seen my savings as a lifeline to fund Ethan's startup and maintain their lifestyle. It wasn't just control, it was desperation. Judge Reed ruled in my favor, ordering the return of $35,000 plus $75,000 in punitive damages for deliberate and invasive misconduct. He issued a permanent injunction barring my parents from accessing my accounts or devices and referred the case for potential criminal charges, though the Dolator declined to prosecute due to the restitution. As we left the courtroom, Ethan hugged me. "You did it," he said, his eyes bright with relief. "I'm so proud of you." Ryan took my hand. "We're getting that house," he said, a grin breaking through. With the $110,000 from the judgment, Ryan and I resumed house hunting. The market had tightened, but we found a two-bedroom home with a deck and a garden patch, listed at $415,000. Our offer was accepted, and closing felt like a reclaiming of my future. We painted the walls sage green, planted basil and rosemary, and hung art we collected together. The house became a sanctuary, a space no one could take from me. Ryan proposed on the deck one evening, his ring a simple silver band with a sapphire. "You're my partner in everything," he said, his voice catching. "Will you marry me?" I said yes, tears mixing with laughter. We married in our backyard, with Ethan as my witness and a handful of friends who'd stood by us. I started therapy with Dr. Corinne Lee, a calm presence who helped me unpack the betrayal. "Forgiveness isn't about them," she said. "It's about freeing yourself from their hold." I set strict boundaries with my parents' limited contact, no financial discussions. They sent gifts and vague apologies, but I held firm. True change would take time they hadn't earned. Ethan moved out, funding his computer science degree with loans and a part-time job at a coffee shop. "I want to earn it," he told me over dinner at our house. Like you did, our bond grew, rooted in mutual respect and shared defiance. The case's publicity opened unexpected doors. A non-profit focused on financial literacy invited me to speak about protecting personal assets. I developed workshops called Secure Your Future, blending data security tips with advice on setting family boundaries. I partnered with domestic violence organizations, recognizing financial control as a form of abuse. "Your story isn't just about money," my co-facilitator, Maria, said after a workshop. "It's about claiming your right to exist on your own terms." Ryan's startup landed a major contract, and he hired developers to keep up. Together, we built a life of purpose and joy, hosting friends for game nights and planting a vegetable garden that thrived in Portland's mild summers. On the trial's anniversary, my father emailed, admitting his actions were misguided and driven by financial panic. It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. I replied briefly, thanking him but keeping my distance. Healing came from my choices: my home, my work, my chosen family. This journey taught me that freedom isn't just financial, it's the ability to define your path, surrounded by those who respect your autonomy. My parents' betrayal could have broken me, but it revealed my resilience. I'd built a life aligned with my values, with a partner and brother who saw me clearly. If you face similar battles, know that setting boundaries is hard, but worth it. Share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. Like, subscribe, and share if this gave you strength. Together, we can build a community of courage and independence. The first few months in our new home were a whirlwind of paint cans, furniture deliveries, and the quiet thrill of building something truly ours. Ryan and I spent weekends transforming the two-bedroom bungalow into a sanctuary. We painted the living room a warm sage green, hung mismatched picture frames with photos of our travels, and planted a small garden with basil, rosemary, and tomatoes that thrived in Portland's mild summer. The deck, where Ryan had proposed, became our favourite spot, with a wooden swing where we'd sit with coffee, watching the neighbourhood settle into evening. But beneath the joy, there were undercurrents of unease. The trial had left scars, not just the betrayal, but the public exposure. My parents' counter-suit and the media coverage had painted our family drama across local blogs, and whispers followed me at work. Colleagues I barely knew asked probing questions, cloaked as concern. "How are you holding up?" they'd say, eyes glinting with curiosity. I deflected with polite smiles, but the weight of their scrutiny lingered. Therapy with Dr. Corenly helped. "You're not responsible for their narrative," she said during a session in her cozy office, surrounded by books and a softly ticking clock. "You're allowed to protect your peace," I nodded, but protecting my peace felt like a daily battle. My parents' emails, carefully worded attempts at reconciliation, kept coming. My mother sent a fruit basket with a card. "We hope you're settling in. Let's move forward." My father offered to advise on investing my settlement money. Each message tested my boundaries, and I responded with brief, firm replies. "Thank you, but I'm not ready to discuss this." Dr. Lee called it structured contact, civil but distant, preserving my autonomy. Ethan, meanwhile, was carving his own path. He'd moved into a studio apartment near his university, funding his computer science degree with loans and a barista job. Over dinner at our house steakout far and homemade spring rolls, he shared his plans. "I'm working on a coding project," he said, his eyes bright, an app for student budgeting. "I want it to be mine, not tied to mom and dad's money." I admired his resolve, a mirror of my own at his age. Our bond, once strained by our parents' favoritism, had grown into something solid, built on shared defiance and mutual respect. The professional fallout from the trial was unexpected. I'd feared the publicity would harm my career, but instead, it opened doors. My workshops, Secure Your Future, were gaining traction. I'd partnered with a local nonprofit, Empower Finance, to teach financial literacy and digital security, focusing on protecting personal assets from family or partner abuse. The sessions were a mix of practical tips, strong passwords, two-factor authentication, and deeper discussions about setting boundaries. Your story resonates because it's about reclaiming power, Maria, my co-facilitator, told me after a packed workshop. A former social worker, Maria had a knack for connecting with attendees, her warm smile putting even the most guarded at ease. But not everyone was supportive. At work, a senior colleague, David Klein, began making subtle digs. David, a data architect with a reputation for arrogance, had been passed over for a promotion I'd earned 6 months earlier. "Heard you're a celebrity now," he said one morning in the break room, his tone marking. "That family lawsuit must make for great conference talks." I forced a smile, but his words stung. Over the next few weeks, he escalated, leaving pointed comments in team meetings, questioning my code in front of others. "Hannah's too busy with her side hustle to focus," he'd say, smirking. I sensed he was leveraging the publicity to undermine me, and it was working. My manager, Priya, noticed the tension but stayed neutral, saying only, "Handle it professionally." Ryan saw my stress mounting. "He's threatened by you," he said one evening as we washed dishes in our new kitchen, the smell of garlic and ginger filling the air. "You're rising," and he's not. He was right, but it didn't make David's barbs easier to ignore. I confided in Maria, who suggested documenting everything. "If he crosses a line, you'll need evidence," she said. "You've already fought one battle, don't let him start another." As winter approached, my parents' attempts at contact intensified. My mother called during Thanksgiving week, her voice overly cheerful. "We'd love to host you and Ryan," she said. "A fresh start for the holidays," I declined, citing plans with friends, but the call left me rattled. Dr. Lee helped me process it. "They're trying to rewrite the narrative," she said. "You don't owe them a holiday or forgiveness." Then came a curveball. My cousin Lynn, my mother's niece, reached out after months of silence. We'd been close as kids, bonding over shared frustration with our strict families, but we drifted apart in our 20s. She asked to meet for coffee, and I agreed, curious but wary. At a cozy cafe downtown, Lynn looked nervous, her hands wrapped around a latte. "I heard about the lawsuit," she said, avoiding my eyes. "Aunt Lan says you're tearing the family apart, but I read the news, and I think you were right to fight back." Her words surprised me. "Thanks," I said cautiously. "It wasn't easy, there's more," she said, lowering her voice. "Your parents are struggling. Their firm lost 2 big clients, and they're behind on their mortgage. Aunt Lan asked my mom for a loan last week. I froze, the pieces clicking. Their desperation during the theft wasn't just about Ethan's startup, it was about saving face. Lynn hesitated, then added, "They're saying you owe them for raising you." "They're planning to ask for money from the settlement." Anger flared, but I kept my voice steady. "They're not getting a cent," I said. "They stole from me." "I know," Lynn said quickly. "I just thought you should know what they're saying." She paused, then added, "I'm on your side, Hannah. I've seen how they control everyone. I'm trying to break free, too." Her honesty disarmed me, and we talked for hours, reconnecting over shared wounds. Lynn was starting her own graphic design business, struggling against her own parents' expectations. "Maybe we can help each other," I said as we parted. "Let's stay in touch." It felt like the start of something new, a family tie built on choice, not obligation. The holidays brought clarity. Ryan and I hosted Thanksgiving in our home, inviting Ethan, Maria, and a few close friends from work, people who'd stood by us through the chaos. We cooked a turkey, burned the sweet potatoes, and laughed until midnight, toasting to chosen family. Ethan brought his girlfriend, Clara, a quiet biology major who shared his dry humor. "You're stuck with me now," he joked, raising his glass. The warmth of that night felt like a balm, healing wounds I hadn't realized still ached. At work, David's hostility escalated. During a team presentation, he interrupted me to correct a minor detail in my analysis, smirking as he spoke. Priya pulled me aside after. "I've noticed the tension," she said. "Document everything, and we'll address it." I followed Maria's advice, keeping a log of David's comments and emails. When he sent a passive-aggressive message questioning my project timeline, I forwarded it to Priya with a calm explanation. A week later, HR called David in for a review. He wasn't fired, but the warnings curbed his behavior, and I felt a quiet victory. "You're unstoppable," Ryan said when I told him, kissing my forehead. My workshops grew, with Empower Finance offering me a part-time role to expand the program statewide. I poured my experience into the curriculum, adding modules on recognizing financial abuse and rebuilding after betrayal. Maria and I called a session for young adults, and one attendee, a 22-year-old named Tara, approached me after. "My dad controls my bank account," she said, her voice trembling. "Your story gave me the courage to set boundaries." Her words hit hard, reminding me why I kept going. On New Year's Eve, Ryan and I sat on our deck, wrapped in blankets under a starry sky. "This year was brutal," I said, leaning against him. "But we made it. We did more than make it," he said, his arm tightening around me. "We built something incredible." A month later, my father emailed again, a longer message than before. "I've been in therapy," he wrote. "I see now that our actions were wrong, not just the theft, but the years of control. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm trying to change." It was the closest he'd come to accountability. I showed it to Dr. Lee, who nodded thoughtfully. "This is progress," she said, "but it's not your job to fix them. Focus on what you're building." I replied to my father, keeping it brief. "Thank you for acknowledging this. I need time, but I appreciate your effort." It wasn't reconciliation, but it was a step toward closure, on my terms. This journey has taught me that freedom is more than a bank balance, it's the courage to define your life, even when those closest to you try to pull you back. My parents' betrayal could have broken me, but it forged a stronger version of myself. With Ryan, Ethan, Lynn, and new allies like Maria, I've built a chosen family that honors my autonomy. My work is now about empowering others to do the same, turning pain into purpose. If you've faced betrayal or fought for your independence, share your story below. Your voice matters. Like, subscribe, and share if this resonated. Together, we can build a community of strength and resilience. Spring arrived in Portland with blooming cherry blossoms and a renewed sense of purpose for me. My workshops with Empower Finance were thriving, drawing larger crowds each month. What had started as a single talk on financial security had grown into a series called Claim Your Space, blending practical advice on digital protection with strategies for setting boundaries in controlling family dynamics. Maria, my co-facilitator, was a powerhouse, weaving her social work experience into our sessions to create a safe space for attendees. "You're not just teaching," she told me after a workshop that drew over 50 participants. "You're giving people permission to take back their lives." The attention wasn't all positive. My growing visibility brought scrutiny, both online and at work. A local podcast, Portland Pulse, invited me to share my story, framing it as a case study in digital privacy. The episode went viral, racking up thousands of downloads and sparking a flood of comments, some supportive, others vicious. "Ungrateful daughter," one anonymous commenter wrote. "Her parents were just trying to help. I tried to shrug it off. But the words stung." Echoing the criticism from relatives during the trial, Dr. Karenli reminded me to focus on my truth. "You can't control the noise," she said during a session, her voice calm but firm. "You can only control your response." At work, David Klein's hostility had simmered down after HR's intervention, but he remained a thorn in my side. He'd stopped his overt comments, but his passive-aggressive emails continued, nitpicking my work in ways that felt calculated to undermine me. My manager, Priya, was supportive, but stretched thin, overseeing a team of 20. "Keep documenting," she advised. "If he crosses a line, we'll escalate." I followed her advice, saving every email and noting every slight, but the tension was draining. Ryan noticed my frustration. "You're carrying too much," he said one evening as we cooked dinner in our cozy kitchen, the smell of garlic and ginger filling the air. "Maybe it's time to consider a change." He was right. My workshops were fulfilling, but my day job felt increasingly like a battleground. I started exploring new opportunities, quietly updating my resume and reaching out to contacts in the tech industry. A former colleague, Jenna, now a director at a cybersecurity startup called Safe Haven, suggested I apply for a role on their privacy team. "Your experience with the Spyware case would be a huge asset," she said over coffee. "We're building tools to protect against exactly that kind of violation." The idea sparked something in me, a chance to turn my pain into something tangible, not just for myself, but for others. As my professional life evolved, my family dynamics grew more complex. My parents' attempts at reconciliation had slowed, but they hadn't stopped. My mother sent a long letter in April, handwritten on her monogram stationery. "We made mistakes," she wrote, "but our intentions were always to protect you and Ethan. Can we meet to talk?" The words felt rehearsed, more about salvaging their image than genuine remorse. I showed the letter to Dr. Lee, who nodded thoughtfully. "They're testing your boundaries," she said. "You don't owe them a meeting or an explanation." I replied with a brief email. "I appreciate your letter, but I'm not ready for a meeting. I need space." It was the truth, but it didn't stop the guilt that crept in late at night. Despite everything, they were my parents, and a small part of me still longed for the connection we'd never truly had. Ethan, meanwhile, was thriving in his independence. His budgeting app, Budget Blocks, was in beta, and he'd secured a small grant from his university to develop it further. Over dinner at our house, grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, he shared his progress. "I've got 200 beta users," he said, his excitement contagious. "Clara's helping with the design, and we're pitching to investors next month." Clara, his girlfriend, smiled proudly, her quiet confidence a perfect match for Ethan's energy. I felt a surge of pride, but also a pang of worrying. Our parents had a history of pulling him back into their orbit, and I feared they'd try again. My cousin Lynn became an unexpected ally. After our coffee meeting, we'd started texting regularly, bonding over our shared struggles with controlling families. She invited me to her apartment one weekend, a small but vibrant space filled with her graphic design work, bold posters, and intricate logos. "I'm pitching to a big client next week," she said, showing me a markup for a local brewery. "If I land it, I can quit my day job." Her determination mirrored mine, and we made a pact to support each other's independence. "No more family scripts," she said, raising her coffee mug in a toast. But the family drama wasn't over. Lynn called me one evening, her voice tense. "Aunt Lang came to my mom's house last night," she said. They're planning to host a big family reunion and want you there to heal the family. They're saying you're being stubborn by keeping you distance. I sighed, recognizing the tactic. My parents were rallying relatives to pressure me, framing themselves as victims. They're not getting a reunion, I said. Not until they respect my boundaries, Lynn agreed, promising to push back if her mom brought it up again. Just when I thought I'd regained control, a new challenge emerged. At a Claim Your Space workshop, I noticed a familiar man in a suit sitting in the front row, his posture rigid, his eyes fixed on me. After the session, he approached, introducing himself as Greg Warner, a private investigator. I read about your case, he said, his voice smooth but unsettling. I've been hired to look into it. Your parents claim you misrepresented the facts. My stomach dropped. They were still fighting, now through a third party. What do you want? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Information, he said. They're considering a new lawsuit, alleging defamation and emotional distress. I need to verify your story. He handed me a card with his contact details and left. I stood frozen, the room spinning. A new lawsuit. After everything. I called Emily Chen, my attorney from the original case, and explained the situation. They're grasping at straws, she said after reviewing Greg's card. Defamation is a high bar, and their countersuit already failed. But we need to be proactive. She advised gathering all my evidence again: bank records, spyware reports, court transcripts, and preparing for a possible deposition. Ryan was furious when I told him. They're relentless, he said, pacing our living room. But you've got the truth on your side. The encounter shook me, but it also steeled my resolve. I contacted the cybersecurity expert from my trial, Dr. Patel, who confirmed the spyware evidence was still airtight. If they come for you again, we'll bury them, she said, her confidence bolstering mine. I also reached out to Ethan, who was outraged. They're trying to rewrite history, he said. I'll testify again if you need me. The threat of a new lawsuit loomed, but I refused to let it derail me. I accepted the job offer from Safe Haven, starting as a privacy analyst with a 20% salary increase. The role felt like a calling, developing tools to detect and block invasive software, drawing directly from my experience. Jenna, my new boss, was supportive, encouraging me to integrate my workshop insights into our projects. You're a natural fit, she said during my first week. Your story drives our mission. As summer approached, I prepared for the possibility of another legal battle. Emily filed a preemptive motion to dismiss any new claims, citing the previous court's ruling and the overwhelming evidence. My parents' investigator, Greg Warner, requested documents and interviews on February 26, 2026. I provided everything, refusing to let their narrative take hold. Lynn, who'd become a close confidant, offered to speak on my behalf, sharing her own experiences with our family's control. We're in this together, she said, squeezing my hand during a visit to our house. The reunion my parents planned never materialized. Relatives, including Lynn's mom, backed off after I made it clear I wouldn't attend without genuine accountability. My parents' financial struggles became public knowledge within the family, and their influence waned. Aunt Lan's loan requests were turned down, and their firm was on the brink of bankruptcy. Their desperation had driven their actions, but it didn't excuse them. At Safe Haven, I thrived, developing a prototype for a spyware detection tool that earned praise from Jenna. This could save lives, she said, reviewing my work. The workshops continued, with Tara, the young woman from my session, becoming a regular attendee. She'd frozen her father's access to her account and was rebuilding her savings, inspired by my story. You showed me it's possible, she told me at a workshop, her eyes bright with determination. Ryan and I planned our first anniversary in our home, a quiet dinner with Ethan, Clara, Lynn, and Maria. We toasted to resilience, love, and chosen family. My parents' lawsuit never materialized. Greg Warner's investigation found no grounds for defamation, and their attorney backed off. The victory felt final, but I knew healing was ongoing. Dr. Lee's words echoed, "Your freedom is your power to choose your path." I'd chosen mine, a life with Ryan, Ethan, Lynn, and a community that saw me for who I was. My parents' betrayal had nearly broken me, but it had forged a stronger me, one who built tools to protect others and boundaries to protect myself. If you've faced similar battles, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. Like, subscribe, and share if this resonated. Together, we can build a community of strength and independence. As fall painted Portland's streets with hues of amber and crimson, I found myself settling into a rhythm that felt both exhilarating and fragile. Our home, now a year old in our care, was a haven of warm sage green walls, a thriving garden, and a deck where Ryan and I spent evenings wrapped in blankets, planning our future. My role at Safe Haven, the cybersecurity startup, was a perfect fit. Developing tools to detect invasive software felt like turning my pain into protection for others. My latest project, a browser extension called Shield Space, alerted users to potential keyloggers and unauthorized access attempts. Jenna, my boss, was thrilled with the prototype. "This could be a game changer," she said during a team meeting, her enthusiasm infectious. "Hannah, you're leading the charge." My workshops with Empower Finance continued to grow, now held bi-weekly at community centres across the city. Maria and I had refined Claim Your Space into a polished program, blending technical advice with emotional resilience strategies. Attendees like Tara, who'd confronted her father's financial control, became regulars, their progress fueling my drive. "I opened my own account," Tara told me after a session, her smile radiant. "It's small, but it's mine." Her words reminded me of my own journey. Every dollar saved a step toward freedom, but the shadow of my past lingered. My parents' emails had tapered off, but their silence felt ominous, like a storm gathering strength. Dr. Corenly noticed my unease during our sessions. "You're waiting for the other shoe to drop," she said, her voice gentle but piercing. "It's normal after betrayal, but you can't live in anticipation of their next move." She was right, but letting go of that vigilance was harder than I'd expected. Ryan sensed it too, often pulling me into a hug when I'd stare too long at my phone, expecting another cryptic message from my mother. Ethan was a bright spot. His app, Budget Blocks, was gaining traction, with 500 beta users and a pitch scheduled at a regional tech conference. He and Clara visited often, their laughter filling our home. "We're thinking of moving in together," Ethan confided one Sunday as we reparted herbs in the backyard. "Clara's lease is up soon, and we want to save for the future." I smiled, proud of his independence, but wary of our parents' influence. "Just keep them out of your finances," I warned. He nodded, his expression serious. "I learned from you, Hannah." No more strings. My cousin Lynn's re-entry into my life became a lifeline. Our weekly coffee meetups had evolved into a ritual, a space to share our dreams and frustrations. Her graphic design business, Lynn Vibe Studio, was taking off. She'd landed the brewery contract and was negotiating with a local bookstore chain for branding work. "I'm finally breaking free," she said one crisp morning at a cafe, hers alight with possibility. "But my mom keeps pushing me to help Aunt Lan and Uncle Min. They're calling it family duty." I recognized the tactic guild as a leash, a favourite of our parents' generation. Lynn shared more troubling news. "They're spreading stories," she said, stirring her latte. "They told my mom you're hoarding the settlement money and refusing to help them out of their debt. They're saying you've turned your back on family." My jaw tightened. It was the same narrative they'd used in their failed counter-suit, repackaged for family gossip. "They stole from me," I said, my voice low. "And now they're playing victims." "I know," Lynn said, reaching for my hand. I told my mom the truth, but she's torn. They're her family, too. Lynn's loyalty meant everything, but it also highlighted the fracture in our extended family. My parents' financial struggles were no secret. Lynn confirmed their firm was now operating at a loss, and they'd taken out a third mortgage. Their desperation had driven their betrayal, but their refusal to take accountability kept the wound fresh. Determined to stay ahead, I asked Lynn to keep me posted on any family plans. "If they're scheming, I need to know," I said. She agreed, promising to be my eyes and ears. Our alliance felt like a shield, a way to protect the life I'd built without being blindsided again. At Safe Haven, my work on Shield Space was gaining momentum, but trouble was brewing at my old job. David Klein, my former colleague, had left the company after HR's warnings, but not without a parting shot. He'd started freelancing and was pitching to Safe Haven's clients, using insider knowledge from our shared projects. Worse, he'd begun spreading rumors about me in industry circles, claiming my lawsuit made me unstable and my work overrated. I discovered this when Jenna forwarded an email from a potential partner who'd heard David's claims. "We need to address this," Jenna said, her tone serious. "Your reputation is tied to our brand now." The betrayal stung, echoing my parents' violation in a new form. David's attacks weren't just professional, they felt personal, a vendetta rooted in his resentment of my success. I met with Jenna and our legal team to strategize. "We can issue a cease and desist letter," our attorney, Mark, suggested. "His claims border on defamation, and we can prove they're false." I hesitated, wary of another legal battle. But Jenna was firm. "You're part of this team, Hannah. We protect our own." I spent late nights compiling evidence emails, project records, and performance reviews from my old job that showcased my contributions. Ryan helped, his coding expertise speeding up the process. "David's just noise," he said, his hand steady on his laptop. "Your signal," his support grounded me, but the stress was mounting. I confided in Maria during a workshop prep session. "It's like I can't escape people trying to tear me down," I said, my voice tight. She listened, then offered a perspective that shifted my thinking. "You're a target because you're rising," she said. "Keep rising anyway." The cease and desist letter went out, and David backed off. But the damage was done. One client delayed a contract, citing concerns about stability. Jenna reassured me it was temporary, but I felt exposed. My past vulnerabilities weaponized again. I threw myself into Shield Space, channeling my frustration into code. The extension was nearly ready for beta testing, and I was determined to make it a success, not just for Safe Haven, but for everyone who'd ever felt spied on or controlled. As winter loomed, my parents made a bold move. My mother called, her voice softer than usual. "We're selling the house," she said. "The firm's gone under, and we need a fresh start. Can we meet to discuss the family without lawyers?" The request caught me off guard. Selling the house, the symbol of their control and status, was a seismic shift. I agreed to meet, but only in a public place with Ryan present. Dr. Lee approved, cautioning me to hold my boundaries. "This could be genuine, or it could be manipulation," she said. "Trust your instincts." We met at a quiet diner near their house, a neutral ground with faded booths and the hum of a jukebox. My parents looked older, their faces lined with stress. My father's usual confidence was gone, replaced by a wary slump. "We're not here to fight," my mother began, her hands folded tightly. "We've lost everything, the business, our savings, we're moving to a smaller place. We just want to rebuild with you and Ethan." I listened, searching their words for sincerity. My father spoke next, his voice low. "I was wrong to take your money," he said, meeting my eyes for the first time in years. "I thought I was saving the family, but I broke it instead. I'm in therapy, trying to understand why I did it." It was the closest he'd come to a real apology, but I wasn't ready to let my guard down. "Thank you for saying that," I said carefully. "But rebuilding trust takes more than words. You spied on me, stole from me, and tried to control my life. I need time and proof you've changed." Ryan squeezed my hand under the table, his presence a steady anchor. They nodded, but my mother's eyes glistened with tears. "We just want our daughter back," she said. I felt a pang of guilt, but Dr. Lee's voice echoed, "You don't owe them your peace." "I'm open to slow steps," I said, "but it's on my terms." Ethan, who joined us at my request, spoke up. "I'm with Hannah," he said. "You heard us both, and I'm building my life without your control. If you want to be part of it, respect our boundaries." His firmness surprised me, a testament to his growth. The meeting ended without promises, but it felt like a turning point, not reconciliation, but a crack in the wall between us. Back home, I discussed it with Ryan and Lynn over wine. "They sounded genuine," Lynn said, "but they've got a long way to go. Ryan agreed. You set the pace, Hannah. They don't get to dictate this. That night, I dreamed of the house I'd grown up in. Its tidy rooms and locked ledger now empty, a relic of a control I'd escaped. I woke with a sense of clarity. My freedom was mine to define, and no one, not my parents, not David, not the past, could take it away. Winter in Portland brought rain-soaked days and a flurry of activity in my professional life. Shield Space, the spyware detection tool I developed at Safe Haven, launched its public beta to overwhelming success. Over 5,000 users downloaded it in the first week, and tech blogs praise its user-friendly interface and robust protection. Jenna, my boss, called me into her office with a grin. Hannah, you've outdone yourself, she said, sliding a tablet across her desk with early reviews. We're getting interest from investors. They want to meet you. The idea of pitching to venture capitalists was daunting, but it also sparked a thrill. My work was making a difference, turning my personal violation into a shield for others. My workshops with Empower Finance were expanding beyond Portland, with invitations to speak in Seattle and San Francisco. Maria and I had hired a part-time assistant, Priya, a recent college grad with a knack for logistics, to manage our growing schedule. You're becoming a movement, Maria said after a session that drew 80 attendees, including Tara, who'd started leading breakout groups. Tara's transformation was inspiring. She'd moved out of her father's house, secured a job as a bank teller, and was saving for college. You gave me a roadmap, she told me, her voice steady. I'm not afraid anymore, but success came with pressure. The spotlight amplified my visibility, and with it, the whispers about my past. A tech forum post resurfaced my lawsuit, with comments debating whether I was a hero or a family traitor. I tried to ignore them, but Dr. Karamli noticed my tension during our sessions. You're carrying the weight of others' judgments, she said, her eyes kind but direct. You can't control their narrative, but you can choose how much space it takes in your life. I nodded, but the balance was tricky. Every step forward felt like a tightrope walk over my past. Ryan was my anchor, as always. He'd taken on a leadership role at his startup, managing a team of 5 developers, and his evenings were spent coding or brainstorming with me over coffee. Shield Space is your legacy, he said one night, his hands wrapped around a mug. You're not just surviving, you're rewriting the rules. His faith in me was unwavering, but I sensed his own stress. His startup was pitching for a second round of funding, and the pressure was intense. We're fine, he assured me when I asked, but his late-night work sessions told a different story. My parents' silence had held for months after our dinner meeting, but it broke in January with an unexpected twist. Ethan called me one evening, his voice tight. Mom and Dad are moving to Seattle, he said. They sold the house and found a condo near the university. They want to be closer to me for my final year. My stomach churned. Their relocation felt less like reconciliation and more like a strategic move to reassert control, especially over Ethan, who distanced himself since the trial. Have they contacted you? I asked, pacing our living room. Not directly, he said. But Clara's mom ran into them at a grocery store, and they were asking about my app, saying they want to invest. I told Clara I'm not interested, but they're persistent. I recognized the pattern, using money as leverage, just as they'd tried with me. I advised Ethan to keep his boundaries firm. Don't let them in, I said. You've built budget blocks without them. You don't need their strings. Lynn, my cousin, confirmed the move during our next coffee meetup. They're telling the family it's a fresh start, she said, her brow furrowed. But my mom says they're still bitter about the lawsuit. They think you owe them for damaging their reputation, I laughed, a bitter edge to it. Their reputation had crumbled because of their actions, not mine, but their refusal to accept responsibility was maddeningly consistent. Lynn's own journey was inspiring. Her design business, Lynn Vibe Studio, had landed a contract with a national coffee chain, and she'd quit her day job to focus on it full-time. I'm terrified, she admitted, showing me her latest logo designs on her tablet. But it feels right, like I'm finally free. I understood that feeling, the exhilaration of breaking away, tempered by the fear of falling. We made a plan to collaborate, She'd design promotional materials for my workshops, and I'd help her secure her business accounts against digital threats. Team independence, she joked, clinking her coffee mug against mine. The family tension escalated when my aunt, Lynn's mother, invited me to a family dinner to welcome my parents to Seattle. "It's time to move past this," she wrote in her email. "They're struggling. Hannah, you're doing so well, can't you help?" The guilt trip was blatant, but I declined, citing work commitments. Lynn backed me up, telling her mom, "Hannah's not the one who broke this family." The support meant everything, but it also highlighted how alone I'd felt before finding allies like Lynn and Ethan. Just as I thought I'd navigated the worst of my family's fallout, a new threat emerged, this time from an unexpected source. At a tech conference in Seattle, where I was presenting Shield Space, I ran into David Klein, my former colleague. He was there pitching his freelance services, his booth strategically placed near safe havens. "Hannah," he said, his smile cold. "Heard your tool's making waves. Shame about the drama behind it." His words were a jab, but I brushed them off, focusing on my presentation. The next day, an anonymous email landed in my inbox, sent to my work address and copied to Jenna and several clients. It contained screenshots of my court case, twisted to paint me as a vindictive daughter who'd fabricated claims against her parents. The email also hinted at inconsistencies in Shield Space's code, suggesting I'd overstated its capabilities. The sender's tone was eerily familiar, and I suspected David immediately. "He's trying to sabotage you," Ryan said, his jaw tight as he read the email. "This is revenge for getting him in trouble." Jenna called an emergency meeting. "This is serious," she said, her voice calm but firm. "The accusations about your code are baseless, our tests prove it, but the personal attacks could hurt our credibility. We need to trace this email." Our IT team confirmed it came from a burner account, but metadata linked it to a co-working space David frequented. Jenna was furious. "We're filing a defamation claim," she said. "And I want you to lead the response, Hannah. Show them you're untouchable." I reached out to Emily Chen, my attorney, who agreed to handle the case. "This is harassment," she said, reviewing the email. "We'll hit him with a cease and desist and pursue damages if he doesn't back off." The legal process felt like deja vu, but this time I was more prepared. I gathered evidence: David's past emails, his conference presence, and testimonials from colleagues debunking his claims. Maria offered to testify about my workshop contributions, and Tara wrote a letter praising Shield Space's impact on her life. Their support was a reminder of the community I'd built, stronger than any attack. The ordeal took a toll, though. I spent sleepless nights debugging Shield Space to ensure no vulnerabilities could be exploited, while Ryan stayed up with me, reviewing code and offering quiet encouragement. "You're stronger than this," he said, kissing my forehead. "David's just a bully with a keyboard." His words kept me grounded, but the stress was palpable, a reminder that freedom came with constant vigilance. As the legal battle with David unfolded, my parents made a surprising move. Ethan called me one morning, his voice shaken. "They showed up at my apartment," he said. "They offered to pay for my tuition if I convince you to drop the boundaries and rejoin the family." I told them no, but they wouldn't leave until Clara threatened to call the police. My heart sank. Their desperation had shifted from financial to emotional, trying to pull Ethan back into their control to get to me. I met Ethan and Clara for lunch to strategize. Clara, usually reserved, was livid. "They acted like they owned him," she said, her hands clenched around her coffee cup. "They kept saying you're tearing the family apart, but they're the ones doing it." Ethan looked torn, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I hate this," he said. "I want them to change, but I can't trust them." "You don't have to," I said. "You're building something real. Budget blocks your life with Clara. Don't let them take that." I shared my own strategy: limited contact, clear boundaries, and no compromises on autonomy. "They need to earn our trust, not demand it," I said. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. "I'm done playing their game," he said. "I'm with you." Lynn, meanwhile, faced her own family pressure. Her mother had been swayed by my parents' narrative, urging Lynn to mediate a reconciliation. I told her no, Lynn said during a video call, her voice firm. I'm not their messenger. But it's hard, she's my mom. I understood her conflict, the pull of family loyalty against the need for independence. We made a plan to support each other, scheduling regular check-ins to stay grounded. The turning point came at a family wedding in Seattle, where my parents and I crossed paths for the first time since the diner. It was my cousin's wedding, and Lynn had warned me they'd be there. I attended with Ryan, prepared for tension. My parents approached during the reception, their faces a mix of hope and defiance. Hannah, we're trying, my mother said, her voice low. We've sold everything, started over. Can't we put this behind us? I took a deep breath, Ryan's hand steady on my back. I'm glad you're trying, I said, but trust is earned, not given. You violated mine in ways I'm still healing from. If you want a relationship, it starts with respecting my boundaries, no pressure, no demands. My father's jaw tightened, but he nodded. We're in therapy, he said. We're learning. It wasn't a full apology, but it was progress, fragile and uncertain. The legal battle with David reached a resolution faster than expected. Emily C. Sanders' letter, backed by our evidence, prompted him to issue a public apology, retracting his claims about Shield Space and my character. Safe Haven's clients reaffirmed their trust, and the delayed contract was signed. Jenna celebrated with a team dinner, toasting to resilience and truth. I felt a weight lift, but the victory was bittersweet. The fight had drained me, a reminder that my past could still reach into my present. Shield Space's full launch in March was a triumph. It hit 50,000 downloads in the first month, with endorsements from cybersecurity experts and a feature in a national tech magazine. I was invited to speak at a global privacy conference, sharing the stage with industry leaders. Your story drives this tool, I told the audience, my voice steady. It's about protecting what's yours, your data, your choices, your life. The applause was deafening, but Tara's hug backstage meant more. You're my hero, she whispered, tears in her eyes. At home, Ryan and I were planning our future. His startup secured its funding, easing his stress, and we started talking about travel, a trip to Vietnam to explore my heritage, a dream I'd shelved for years. Ethan and Clara moved in together, their apartment a cozy space filled with budget blocks, prototypes and Clara's biology textbooks. Lynn's business was booming, with a new contract for a tech startup's branding. We're doing it, she said during a group dinner at our house, raising her glass. Living on our terms, as spring returned, I reflected on the past 2 years. My parents' betrayal had been a crucible, forging a stronger version of myself. Their move to Seattle hadn't changed our dynamic, but their therapy and small steps toward accountability gave me hope, not for reconciliation, but for closure. I maintained my boundaries, meeting them occasionally at neutral events like the wedding, always with Ryan or Ethan by my side. Trust, if it ever came, would be a long road. Dr. Lee's guidance remained my compass. You've reclaimed your narrative, she said during our last session before I scaled back to monthly visits. You're not defined by their actions, you're defined by your choices. Those choices: building a home with Ryan, empowering others through Shield Space and my workshops, and nurturing bonds with Ethan and Lynn were my freedom. On our second anniversary in the house, Ryan and I hosted a barbecue, inviting our chosen family: Ethan, Clara, Lynn, Maria, Tara, and Priya from Empower Finance. The backyard was alive with laughter, the smell of grilled vegetables, and the clink of glasses. To freedom, Ryan toasted, his eyes locked on mine. And to Hannah, who showed us what it means to fight for it, I looked around, my heart full. The scars of betrayal would always be there, but they were part of a larger story, one of resilience, love, and purpose. If you've fought for your freedom, share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. Like, subscribe, and share if this resonated. Together, we can build a community of strength and independence.